little bit today. So I just want to thank everybody for coming and joining us. And this is the first of our retail series that we're having for our webinars. So these are our coffee chats. I always ask people, do you have your oh, it won't even show my coffee mug. Your coffee mug ready for a little bit of a chat. And before we get started, I just want to do a couple of housekeeping things. So, first of all, like a huge thank you to our guests for joining today, as well as our participants. And I'd like to also do a land acknowledgement before we begin our talk today. So we acknowledge we're Ontario Organic. We cover all of Ontario, and so our land acknowledgement is to so many of those peoples that this is their land. So we acknowledge that there's 46 treaties and other agreements that cover the territory now called Ontario, where the Ontario Organic membership resides. And we're thankful to be able to work and live in these nations. And we're grateful to work with the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who have cared for these territories since time immemorial and who continue to contribute to the strength of Ontario and to all communities across the province. If you'd like to drop in the chat your land acknowledgement for the place where you are, we're happy to have you do that. And also in the chat, if you want to just drop where you're coming from and what your background is, we like to see that as well. So a little bit about Ontario Organic. The majority of people I see on here are familiar faces, so it's so great to see all of you, and you probably know about the great work we're doing. Formerly known as the Organic Council of Ontario, we've been working for a very long time to bring together farmers, businesses, and eaters to build this community and support it. And so we say, you know what, we support the entire organic value food chain, which is from those people whose hands are in the dirt all the way to the people who are eating the food. And there are so many things that happen in between those two places. And so there are so many people involved in this value chain, and we're so thankful to them. And we're also happy to support them with webinars just like this is some of our learning extension where people can learn about organics and so much more. So we also have a couple of other things that'll be happening later this week and this month, and we'll talk about some of those learning events as well. And thanks for dropping where you guys are coming from in the chat. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So today we have two people joining us today, Angela Donnelly and Rebecca Kerrivan. Angela Donnelly, for introduction, was raised by hippies on Salt Spring Island. And of course, we always want to know why people would leave BC and come to Ontario. We have so many great things, but so beautiful out in BC. And so you were growing and selling organic before most Canadians knew what the word meant. And how long ago was that then? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, that's a total exaggeration, but
Oh,
I started selling organic food when my parents had an organic food market on Salt Spring. And so that was when I was 12, which is in the 80s, the
in the
1980s.
all right, all right. And yeah, so and that's also our Guelph Organic Conference started around
Oh,
that
nice.
too. So yeah, definitely was the early, we call them the OGs, the organic OGs. A consultant, entrepreneur, and small business champion, Angela has worked in both wholesale and retail natural food business for decades, founding one of Toronto's first organic home delivery services, Front Door Organics. Over the decades, she has been a tireless advocate for local healthy food, creating lasting relationships with organic farmers across Canada. And for the past 15 years, which is quite a long time to be running a store, Angela and her partner JJ have run Raise the Root, a go-to spot for fresh organic and natural foods in Toronto's Leslieville neighborhood. So really impressive there. All right, and also joining us today for this conversation is Rebecca Kerrivan, CNP, which stands for Certified Nutrition
Nutritional practitioner. Yeah.
Practitioner. And
Holistic nutritionist.
Oh, holistic. Yeah. All right. And is a passionate and dedicated holistic nutritionist with nearly 7 years of experience in the wellness industry. And she serves as the in-house nutritionist at Joanne's Place Health Foods, and where she also works as a supplement buyer and staff trainer while supporting the community through one-on-one consultations and educational workshops. So thanks so much, Angela and Rebecca, for joining us. Rebecca, where is Joanne's Place Health Foods?
So we have two locations, one in Lindsay, Ontario, and one about 40 minutes away in Peterborough, Ontario.
Okay, okay, all right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. So, for this retail series, we're going to have a number of topics. And in April, today, the question the overarching question I really think is on the top of people's minds is who is the organic customer? Really, who is that person? And so I'm going to start with you, Angela, and I'm going to ask you, who is it that's actually coming in to buy organic food at your store?
Well, I guess it's a pretty wide range. Our store is pretty small, so it's not necessarily a destination shopper that comes and shops at our store. In some ways, I think that I've never done a poll, but I would say like at least a quarter of our customers shop at our store, not because we're an organic store, but because we're the closest store to them.
Oh,
Um, I do think that neighborhood really makes a difference in a city like Toronto, where there's so many options for people to shop. And I think that people do feel very loyal to their neighborhoods. At least the type of shopper that would shop at Raise the Root, it does feel loyal to their neighborhood. So they're keen to support the stores that are in their neighborhood. Um, so it's less maybe about organic than it is about shopping local. But the people, we do have people who, for example, will not go to the closest farmers market because they don't know what's organic at the farmers market and they have a very clear sense that what we sell is organic. We only sell organic fruits and vegetables. Not everything that we sell is certified, but the majority of food that we sell is certified. So people know that about us. And I mean, it's in our name. So, I mean, we did think a lot about that store raised an organic market because we knew that that meant we were making a commitment. But it's a commitment we felt really strongly about for decades. So I think that I would say that the people who shop at our store are definitely interested in the environment. They're definitely concerned about global warming. They're interested in their own health. Um, I would say are they interested in farm workers' health? Maybe, I don't know that they are. I mean, I'm not saying they aren't, but I don't know that that's like the prime motivator. Most of them have what seem like, middle class jobs, like secure employment, I would say. We do happen to be across the street from some subsidized housing, and so some folks there are not that mobile. So they're shopping at the store, even though, to be honest, they can't really afford to, but we happen to be across the street. So, you know, that we do have some clientele there. Yeah, people who are into, and also people who are really into Ontario grown food. That's a big segment of our customers too.
okay. And what about age demographics?
Um, Not super young. I would say we don't have that many customers under 30. I mean, we don't have also our neighborhood is pretty family. Like, so like we're in the east side of downtown, like the west side of downtown is a younger demographic. So, when you go to that side of town and say walk along their Queen Street, which is Queen Street West, we're Queen Street East. Um, yeah, it's a bit of a younger crowd. And here we have a lot of strollers. I feel like a lot of folks don't start having children until their 30s nowadays. So I feel like, and we have a lot of older customers who are definitely in their 50s. We have a lot of retired customers. Yeah, so maybe not the really young.
Yeah. And can we say that 50s is not your older customers, please?
Fair, fair, fair.
So, all right, and same for you, Rebecca. What are you guys seeing at Joanne's place where you're at there?
Yeah, I think similar to Angela, it's kind of there's a variety of different customers that we're seeing that prioritize kind of organic shopping, you know, younger parents like mothers, that kind of thing. I think we see a lot of that. And then you're more people who have shopped with us at Joanne's Place kind of since, the first location opened in 1976. So we have a lot of kind of long-term shoppers that have always prioritized the environment, always kind of prioritized organic and understand that kind of whole seed to consuming it in a meal idea of and the importance of that. So yeah, really like a wide variety. And I'm thinking more kind of like vegetables and dairy and meat kind of thing. Like we do have a wide selection of like supplements and like packaged foods and that kind of thing as well. But I think that's kind of what we're seeing. And then, yeah, I agree. Like, not a lot of that super young kind of demographic. We see those customers, yes, but not necessarily shopping kind of organic and prioritizing that.
Yeah. And at your place there, Joanne's place, is it what percentage is organic foods?
So in terms of produce, dairy, and meat, we all everything is organic. Yeah. So I want to say I would be guessing like, at least 80% kind of thing. We do like really highly consider, especially like in the past years, and those entry level products, right? Like, so getting customers into the store, and we do really prioritize education. So yeah, getting customers into the store so we can kind of educate them in that sense. But yeah, at least 80%, I want to say. Mhm.
Okay, all right. And I see Carolyn's dropped a question in the chat, and I should just say in terms of this, feel free to drop questions into the chat and we'll have an actual question and answer session at the end. But Carolyn's asking about the regular customers. So yeah, I think I would also be interested in knowing as well, like in terms of your percentage of customers, how many are you seeing on the regular that they are returning customers?
That's a good question. Again, I'd be guessing in terms of percentage, but we do have a good amount of regulars. Up until very recently, I was the manager of the Lindsay location, and I want to say we're looking at probably 75% of like regular customers. Peterborough I haven't kind of worked in the store quite as much as the Lindsay location. Our Lindsay location's smaller than our Peterborough location, so I would say the percentage is maybe a little bit less in our Peterborough location. Again, I would be guessing maybe 50%. Yeah.
Okay. All right. How about you for you, Angela?
Yeah, we have a ton of regulars. I think maybe I would agree with Rebecca, maybe 75%. I mean, we know a lot of our customers by names. So, for us to know their name, they have to be coming in pretty regularly. So, yeah, I mean, we sometimes will get someone and I'll be like, oh, I've never seen them before. But, yeah, a large percentage of our customers are regulars.
Okay. All right. And is there so we're talking about you guys have all, the majority of products, that you're carrying or all of it is organic food. Is there any products that people are asking for that you can't provide? Angela, do you want to start off? Is there any
Any products that we can't provide?
Yeah, like they're coming in and they're like, "Do you have X?" And you're
Well,
just
I mean, we
don't have
do, yeah, I mean, we could sell um we could sell a little bit more produce. If we had more refrigeration and if we had a few more customers, we could sell more produce. So for example, like we don't everyone like we kind of rotate between some of the routes that are less popular for produce, I'm talking. Um so, we don't always have rutabaga. As a matter of fact, we hardly ever have it. And ditto for parsnips. We don't really buy pineapple very often because it's just so expensive to buy it organically, and it's a case of six. And would we sell them? I don't know. I mean, our store is 800 square feet, so it's a very tiny store. We do for that little tiny spot, our footprint is small, but we do sell a lot of produce for being small. But like it's hard for us to carry all of the produce items. I mean, we have a good array. We have a good array. But the produce items that are out of fashion um are, so say some of the roots like celeriac or whatever. I mean, some of those vegetables, I love them so much. And they're also the vegetables that are grown in Ontario. And they're also the vegetables that will last, the storage crops will last the longest, right? So that's a bit of a frustrating mix. And so we do a lot of education around that, and we try to, be like telling people a lot, well, this is still from Ontario. You can eat organic Ontario, all year round if you really want, depending on how dedicated you are to the root vegetable. But so yeah, we don't always have all the root vegetables. Um, Not, sometimes we'll run out of herbs or whatever, but I mean, we do try to sell a really good complement of fruits and vegetables.
Okay. And how about you, Rebecca? You guys have any things that are missing that people would like to see in your store?
Yeah, I would say similar. So speaking of the Lindsay location, it would just be slightly bigger, likely than Angela's location, it sounds like. Similar kind of issues in that sense where we really prioritize kind of those staples, like your greens, your potatoes, I'm trying to think like your oranges, your citrus, that kind of thing, and then a couple selection of herbs because we don't have quite as big of an infrastructure in our Lindsay location. Whereas in Peterborough, we're really lucky to have like a really big, beautiful kind of refrigeration and like a big section for it. So we can offer more of those kind of fun, more fun kind of in season vegetables. So I would say, yeah, in the Lindsay location, people are looking for more, but we're lucky in that sense. What we do is we buy all of our produce in Peterborough and we will ship it to Lindsay. So we luck out in that sense where we don't have to commit to cases. While I was managing, I did look into perhaps doing our own produce buying, but for the most part, we just can't handle full cases of things. Yeah, so I would say Lindsay location missing a lot of kind of those same things. And unfortunately, it is some of those, more of our, I would say, like our tried and true organic, environmentally concerned customers miss things like, say, celeriac and that kind of thing. But our general population maybe isn't so much looking for that. So unfortunately, we can't offer it. And we're seeing a lot too, just because of where Lindsay is located, a lot of people are kind of migrating over from the GTA. So just a different kind of customer base in that sense. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And there was a question in the chat about a greenhouse to offset the season. I think really then the question is, when we're talking about the products that you're bringing in, neither one of your stores is like growing your own food. You guys are outsourcing all of your products. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right. And
Lucky that like Fennings, I think I was kind of peeking at one of the YouTube videos, Angela, that you did with Ontario Organic, and I saw some Fennings on the shelf. So we buy from Fennings as well, which is really nice. So, while customers definitely are prioritizing Canadian products, what's really lovely about Fennings is that they have some farms in California. So it can kind of offset the seasons in that way.
yeah. And one thing I'd like to say about Finnings too, they're an impact member with us. So every time you buy a Finnings product, you're actually contributing right back to Ontario Organic and the organic farmers in Ontario. So yeah, we're really happy that they do support a lot of stores here in Ontario, and it's a great ecosystem of feeding back. We feed back into the soil. I don't know if you know about their circular economy, but basically any wasted food they actually take back in and it goes right back into the soil or goes to people who will actually use that food. And same as when you purchase from them, that actually the funds actually go back into the Ontario economy too. So it's a really great system that way. Anytime someone brings up Finnings, I have to like do a wahoo to Finnings because they are just so important to Ontario Organic. All right, so when we're talking about like the products you have in, and we're talking about the products you don't do and don't have there, and we're really talking about the organic customer. Are you seeing that their shopping habits are changing what you're seeing in that store so that you're seeing certain products that you are taking up more shelf space because people want more of it and you're seeing decreases over time? Like, are you seeing a lot of transformation in terms of of growth and decline in those different products?
Yeah, I mean, I think food is kind of it's very trend based in some respects. Like when we first started our box program in 1997, just people just hated kale. Just hated it. Nobody wanted it, and whenever we had it in the box, people would sub it out like crazy, and the same with chard. And then kale just became like such an on-trend vegetable, and actually it's been on trend for a long time. When we opened Raise the Root in 2014, we gave a free bunch of kale to everybody who came in the store on opening day because it was so popular, and it's still that popular. We still sell so much kale. And yet chard never really had that same kind of resurgence. Why? Who knows? We don't know why. Like, I mean, it's nice because kale can maybe be grown when it's colder, but chard's pretty hardy too. And they both get grown in Ontario a lot, and they're also both available by import. And so why did, kale kind of reach the zenith that chard never reached or hasn't yet? Who knows? We don't know. So I think that certainly when my parents first started selling organic food, there were so many things you could not buy organically. It was much more of a seasonal arc. Even conventional produce was a seasonal arc in the 80s and 90s, and um, maybe not the aughts, but that seasonal arc doesn't really exist in a store like ours since we purchase import product and local. So I think that people are used to getting everything that they want to eat, and they're used to being able to eat it every week. I do feel like that's going to change with the price changes that we're having, and I do think because of global warming, and I think because of fuel costs, et cetera, that we maybe are going to have to be forced back into a more local based food supply chain, which could be really good for us. I mean, not necessarily us at Raise the Root Organic Market, but us as human beings. So, I mean, I can't really remember why I started this ramble, what your original question was, but I do think that food tastes do change, that people do they change based on trend, they change based on we're also going away from a home cooking vibe in our society, at least in Toronto, in a big city like Toronto. A lot of people don't really cook much anymore. So any vegetable that has to be cooked, they're out. Um, anyway, yeah, I think things do change quite a bit.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And that was like, just looking at those buyer preferences and growth and decline. I guess like when there was the carrot juicing frenzy and those kinds of things that yeah, you would definitely see more of that. And you've been watching those products over time as well. How about for you, Rebecca, at your location there? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see like of course with, financial constraints increasing a little bit, like maybe less prioritization of organic. We're really lucky in the sense that it we consider like our dairy a loss leader, so we really are intentional about keeping that cost low. I wouldn't say all of our veggies are a loss leader, but we kind of try to tweak pricing so that it does stay fairly reasonable. So really trying to, that's something our owners are really, passionate about is making those foods accessible for people. So really, really trying to do that. But yeah, I think definitely seeing a little bit of a prioritization of that. And then, of course, our bigger chains are offering more in terms of organic and that kind of thing. So seeing a little bit of the impact of that. Yeah, and I think I'm trying to think. I wish I had a little bit more data that I brought with me so I could give you some more concrete answers. But I'm just seeing a question about like peanuts or nuts in general. We have a really I can't think of their name. I think it's Colonel Peanuts, who is a great new peanut supplier. So like an Ontario-based peanut supplier. So that's kind of nice to have. We do our best to supply again with nuts like organic as well, just kind of those staples. We're lucky to package some of our, we have a packaging department that will package some of our own like grains and that kind of thing. Again, offering accessible organic options to our customers. But just overall, we are, we did see a bit of a dip in sales that we're seeing come up a little bit, just with, like I said, with those financial constraints overall.
Yeah. And when we're talking about shelf space,
Mhm.
are you then, if you do have something that people are really interested in, are you pushing out some, we were talking about, what do you not currently provide, but are you finding that you
Mhm.
sometimes have to push stuff out that people might want? Because like I know, Angela, you're talking about you have like really limited space there. If there is like a Cara frenzy or whatever, and you're taking up that space, does that mean there's less space for some of those other items?
No, not really. If we're really trying to push something or something wildly popular, maybe we will make that display a little bit bigger. But we are thinking about getting another 6 foot. We have a one 6 foot open merchandiser, and then everything else is not refrigerated. So we are thinking about getting a second merchandiser refrigeration unit, and then we would be pushing some of our grocery out. We sell so much more fruits and vegetables than we sell grocery. We don't sell very much meat. There's a butcher 2 doors down from us. Um, but yeah, I mean, the other sort of dry goods, we can't really be price competitive on them. And we don't really have any buying power to speak of. And so but we can really make a go of it with the produce. We have a decent margin on the produce. We don't use produce as the loss leader. We do really try to make the produce be the thing that does attract people to come to our stores. I would say like 90% of our customers come here primarily because they like the quality of the produce. So that's like the labor tag is really high on that, right? But yeah, if something was really popular, we would try to just put more on the display and stock it more often, but we wouldn't necessarily craft off the shelf altogether.
Okay. And just for because I know a lot of people here might not be familiar with the term loss leader, is and feel free to correct me, but basically, loss leader is where you price it pretty close to what you buy it at to get people in the store. And so, like at a grocery store, milk generally is a loss leader, but it's placed at the very back of the store so that people have to actually go through the entire store to get the milk, and then they buy the not loss leader products. Is that accurate in my definition
Yeah,
of that?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, all right. And all right, so we've talked about the demographics, we've talked about the products you have in your stores, really starting to get this idea of like kind of the space and what it looks like around where you are. And now like really starting to think about why are people coming into your store? We've talked about kind of that at the beginning, like who it is, but like we've talked about the high prices, the changing prices, changing who's coming in. We've talked about, the people who care about organic, right? We did talk about that. But when we're looking at this, are they coming in for the values? If they are coming in for organic, the values of organic, are they coming in for their health? And their overall health. Are they coming in because they care about the environment? And I think on this question, I originally had availability. I think Angela, you talked about being right in your neighborhood. That was part of it, but I don't know, Rebecca, if that's the case with you. So I'll start with you, Rebecca. What do you find the customers are driven to get? Like, what brings them really through the door? And if they're, choosing that organic produce, if you were to have a conversation with you and you said, "Why are you buying this?" What would be the answer?
Yeah, that's I think in our like maybe older demographic are really more regular customers that have been with Joanne's Place for a long time. You are seeing that concern for the environment, concern for future generations, concern for farmer health. But I don't know. I think in the younger demographic, it's I don't mean selfish in a negative way, but more my health. Like, how does this impact my health? So I think that's what you see a little bit more of in terms of like organic kind of dairy produce, meat, that kind of thing. Um, Maybe in terms of like meat, maybe you're seeing a little bit more concern for like animal welfare and that kind of thing for sure. And then in terms of kind of what draws customers into our store, we really do place a heavy emphasis on education and really serving our community in that sense, whether that's supporting them through, choosing a supplement to make them feel better, some staple foods that to add into their pantry that will help make them feel better. So that's something that's really important to us. And in terms more so of our Peterborough location, because it is quite a large location, I don't know the square footage, fairly large location. We have that opportunity to jump on some kind of trendy things to bring customers into the store with, but we are quite choosy about ingredients and that kind of thing, and products. We may not jump on a trend, like if it's super trendy but it doesn't align with our values. We have an ingredients list that we kind of filter things through. We're not going to bring that in, but there is a bit more of that opportunity, and we do have to be more competitive, especially in our Peterborough location, because there is a larger health food store chain that's entered Peterborough. And also, more, your Sobeys, your Loblaws are offering a lot more of that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. And when we're talking about this, is I was actually at the Eat Well, Live Well conference yesterday talking about labels and that education piece. Like people are like, "Oh, certified organic means non-GMO." And or it means that, the animals are actually treated differently. Do you guys do a lot of that education as part of when people are talking to you about why is this priced more expensively or why is it organic? Is that part of that education piece that you're adding?
Yeah, we educate all of our staff on that kind of thing when they enter the store. There is quite a lengthy kind of training process that staff have to go through to kind of be on the floor at Joanne's place. So when we have the opportunity, absolutely. Especially some of our staff are quite passionate, so it's probably hard to get away without a little bit of that information coming across. But yeah, but as preparing for this as well and thinking a lot more about this, it's something I would actually like to speak on more. Um, More, not so much in the store, for sure in the store, but a little bit. We've got like a podcast and a couple other avenues, and I'd love to speak more on that to educate the importance of organic beyond just your health.
Yeah, yeah. All right. And Angela, so back to that original question, like if you were to ask someone, why are you buying this? What kind of answers are you going to be getting from your customers?
I do think, and also not to criticize the selfishness, but I do think that we do have there's a large component. We had this with front organics as well. When people have a baby and they decide that that baby is only going to get the purest food available. Um, do I look down on that a little bit? Maybe I do. I shouldn't, of course, because any organic consumer is a consumer that we need to value. But I do think it is a little bit, I don't know, precious or whatever. But that aside, it's good. Anyone switching to organic food for any reason is always positive. It's because it is positive for the environment, even if that's not the reason that brought them into the store. So I'd say we have some customers who are maybe newish to organic, but know what it is, and they have a stroller, and they're very determined to feed that food to their baby, especially the new moms who are making, and some dads who are making the baby food for the kids and stuff like that. I think sometimes also people with older kids will bring their, after school to get a snack because they think that it might be healthier, some of the options that we have as opposed to going to the corner store. Um, so I think that, I don't know, do customers think that, do they really understand the link between sort of groundwater and the environment? I'm not sure. I feel like of course some do for sure. And I do think it is maybe some of the older customers. We don't do that much education about organic, and that's partly because most people who come into the store know what organic is. Um, Sometimes they'll come in and say, is this organic? And I'll say, yes, you see that sign right there? This is 100% organic produce. Everything here is organic. Um, you know, so I think, but we don't really, I would say maybe at our last business over the phone, we did more educating on, explaining to people the benefits of organic. I think people here know that organic is good, and maybe they even have it in the back of their mind. It's good for the environment if it's good for their baby, and so they have a double feedback loop on the positive nature of their purchase. But I think the majority of people coming in here know what organic is and do want to buy organic food. And um, I would say, I don't know, we have a lot of people who are really concerned about their health, their children's health. But we have a lot of environmentalists. We have a lot of people, well, not even environmentalists, but just like normal people who care about global warming, which most people do care about it.
Yeah, but sometimes they don't make the connection between their food
Yeah, it's true.
and that, right? Like
Yeah.
there's some things about like I'll drive an electric car, but I'll still
Yeah.
eat conventional foods, right? Like
Yeah,
they
it's
just
true.
don't make
I
that
mean,
connection.
prices is such a big driver on that, but I do think that especially when you do the double hit of it's organic, it's local, I do think that people maybe have a sense that this is the kind of food system I want to support. I do think we have customers who really do get that on a fundamental level, just even about food security and getting food close to home and how important that is, especially with, numbnuts downstairs and the threats. Like people do feel threatened, so they're like, yeah, let's the more we can get from here, the better.
The local piece has really been a driver, I think, over the last year. We've definitely been hearing about that. I want to just say, like my first I had my first baby in 1998 and he only had organic food because did not want any pesticides or herbicides. And that was my, my gateway drug, if you will, to organic foods and then understanding the larger implications too. So it is, and we do know that that's the demographic that is growing in organic food purchasing is families and they care about their health. But sometimes the environment is like the bonus that can be added and then eventually it changes into, oh yeah, this is actually like super important. All right, so we're got about 10 more minutes before we're going to open up for general questions. And but Carolyn has a really good question here about the customers cooking from scratch to put food and meals on the table. So I actually have a question kind of that will involve that one. So as a parent of three young adults, one who does cook and two that, basically get as many prepared foods as possible, and that's heartbreaking. But also kind of the norm now is that they might be ordering from restaurants. They just don't cook in the same way, and it's kind of an acceptable norm with this generation when they can, order any food that they possibly want and have it there within minutes, right? Like it's a very, very different life than we have seen. Have you noticed that? you know, um, there's less people coming in to buy those whole foods for cooking? And then do you have options for the grab and go stuff that's already made for people? And do you see a difference in what people are aiming for in your in your stores? And Angela, I'm going to start with you because you've been doing this a long time. I imagine you've possibly seen this change in real time. What does that look like
Yeah,
for
for
you?
sure. I mean, you know, well, I've been in retail for so long. I do think that there is, as you say, definitely a curve away from home cooked meals. Um, I think that it's sort of a part of stage capitalism that is, kind of hurting us all. Like I think it's so much more financially beneficial to make food. But we do live in this world, like you said, for your child. It's like instantaneous ordering of food is just so depressing. But I think that we still have a lot of people who are making food. I think they're doing some of them, a lot of them are doing a hybrid. Like they might we sell the Beretta Farms pulled pork. So that's like a pre-made thing that they can buy, and then maybe they'll buy a few vegetables. I know for myself, even though I'd like to be in the curve of working less, I seem to be in the curve of working more. And I do have two kids at home, and they're teenagers, but I still cook for them, and but I don't cook that much. If I get home at 6 o'clock, I don't. I'm tired, and it's hard for me to rustle up a meal. Um, I mean, we still manage to eat good food. Sometimes I might, like poach a couple eggs, or you know what I mean, like grab something that seems like at least a whole food. But so I think people are probably eating a lot of takeout. maybe a couple meals a week, but that a lot of our customers are still making food. They'll come in here, they'll have a list, they'll have a recipe, we'll talk about things we made. There's a lot of talk about meals that we've made. I love to cook myself. So, we're always talking about, oh, I made this amazing thing. Oh, let's exchange that recipe. There's actually recipe exchange. People will be like, send that recipe to me, and so I do think that um it is maybe the same demographic of people that are interested in eating local and interested in eating organic are interested in having a connection with their food, and that connection goes to preparing it so that it's on the plate and they know what's in it. And I think that's such a rich relationship, and one that we're so happy for and grateful for here. I think we probably have that more than maybe some other businesses that aren't organic or aren't so focused on local food. So I don't know what percentage. Of course, we do have people who just grab a bag of chips, but I would say a large portion of the customers who are purchasing produce from us are preparing a meal at home.
Okay. All right. I appreciate the whole story there too of kind of all of those bits and pieces and sharing recipes, I guess is a really important job coming from your type, but like that might not be anything else a regular grocery store would be doing as
Yeah.
much, right? But it would be an important thing to do as well. How about you, Rebecca? I'm guessing between the two locations you might see very different shopping habits, but yeah, what are you saying?
Yeah, I would say kind of similar to what Angela had said. It's a similar demographic as is buying kind of prioritizing organic produce and that kind of thing. I still think we do have those customers that are really preparing from scratch. Like we said, we offer a lot of bulk items and we do see, good sales on that. So those customers are definitely there. I think we do see people who are looking for healthier, more convenience foods as well. But of course, in that like the price point is always more difficult, right? It's quite expensive to have like a ready-made meal that's organic and kind of free of any, not so great ingredients. So I think that kind of conflict is there. The want is there, but the price point can be so high. Yeah, and a lot of our staff kind of do operate in that sense, of course, kind of being attracted to working at a health food store. So there is like recipe exchange. We try to promote a lot of that on our social media. And ways to keep it simple, like simple recipes. These things don't have to be super complicated. So we do try to promote that. And again, there's an education piece on that with customers as well. Like this bag of flour kind of maybe being more expensive, but then the education piece of just how far that's going to go compared to buying your pre-made muffins or that kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of a tougher question I find to give a concrete answer to, but yeah, similar.
See that.
Yeah.
All right. And yeah, it's the whole idea of why people, start cooking. I think we'll swing again. I think that we just will keep
Yeah.
swinging back and forth. I think we're going to go back to more home cooking. Yeah, fingers crossed, all of that. So my final question is misconceptions. Someone comes into your store and they want to buy organic food. What's the like surprise thing or where they don't understand thing? Where are those misconceptions happening? Rebecca, I'll start with you for
Mhm.
that one. Where are you seeing those misconceptions?
Yeah, I think, like you had mentioned, like just a simple one of like not understanding that it incorporates non-GMO as well. I think there's like a bit of a misunderstanding of the process and the upkeep of having an organic certification. I think that's kind of something that could be a little bit more understood as well. And then maybe I think a lot, our customers can have some of our demographic can have a little bit of a mistrust in like a government kind of certification program. And I think maybe a little bit of a not understand, like, I think I've heard a couple of times, well, they caught so and so still using whatever pesticide and just kind of misunderstanding that, like, well, that was caught though. That's the whole point of these yeah, these programs. So maybe just not so much understanding that and just kind of battling just how great our kind of organic certification actually is and building that trust in that, how important it is to have that that stamp on it is something I like to educate clients and customers on when I have that opportunity, and just like the peace of mind that they can have when you've got that stamp on a product.
Yeah, I was at that conference yesterday and I walked around and I was looking at all the words,
Natural, like,
organic, natural, non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free. And I'm like, who's checking any
yes.
of these labels? Anybody could put whatever they want on there, and unless somebody like tracks them down, they wouldn't have it. But when you have that label, and it is one of the very, very few labels that means that it's been checked every single year, that it's adhering to global organic standards,
Mhm.
not just in Canada. But we have this equivalency with all of these other countries, the EU, et cetera. Like how important that label is, and that's like one of the few things you can trust out there. But yeah, so yeah, just I think that's really important. Angela, you've been doing this again for a long time. What's the misconceptions that you've seen, and has it
I
changed
do
a lot with more education out there now compared to what it used to be?
I think that people do assume that our store is going to be very expensive. Um, so I think that is a bit of a misconception. I think that I'm often price checking. We're close to so many different grocery stores, and Ambrosia just opened a store very close to us. It's a family-run chain of quite large natural food stores. They have five now, and so I'm price checking there, and I'm price checking Loblaws, and I'm price checking Farm Boy. Those are the ones that are the closest to us. And we're just not always more expensive. And not only that, but we're not even more expensive than conventional food at the time. And sometimes I think that just yeah, the misconception about price is a difficult one to overcome. Like I think that, sometimes I'll talk to customers about doing a massive shop at Costco. They'll do a massive shop at Costco. I know Costco has the whatchamacallit, Kirkland organic line. But so they'll do a massive shop at Costco, spend hundreds of dollars, bring it home, put it in the fridge, and then how much of it gets thrown out just because they bought so much food. So we're always kind of encouraging people to make multiple small trips. It's a different economy than Lindsay for sure. Maybe Peterborough more possible, but like in Toronto, you can walk to our store. You can stop here. We're right by a streetcar stop. You can stop after work, get what you need, buy it, take it home. You spent what, $20, maybe 30, and you're going to eat it all because you're shopping for that meal. And so we're constantly trying to talk to people about changing their shopping habits. Now, that's maybe a bit of a class issue. Not everybody can afford to spend the time to do a shop um like they lived in Paris in the 1950s, so it's not possible for everybody, but we're really trying to fight the misconception that buying natural and organic food is price prohibitive, because it really does depend. Like even just buying bulk or buying whole grains and legumes instead of canned, and I mean there's so many ways we can reduce our food bill. A lot of them do involve time, I know, but I think that I do also think that we kind of missed the boat on GMOs. Like for a long time, GMOs were so in the news and everyone was really concerned about them. And, it was so good that the organic certification meant no GMOs, but we have a non-GMO policy in the store. And when people want to sell us a product, we'll say, well, what about your ingredients? Like if it's not organic, we'll say, what about your ingredients? And is it are you sure that nothing is has GMOs? And they won't even really know what a GMO is, some of them. So I do feel that that's a place where we need to do more education, that GMOs are still this wild west of we don't even know, and no one knows how that's going to impact the environment or us. Or, I mean, I'm sure some scientists do know, but I don't really know. I know I don't want to eat them, and I think that there could be more education on people knowing that organic means non-GMO, certified organic means non-GMO. I think that's a really important um, thing. And I agree with you that there's so many labels, like you say, that it's hard to know which ones are true. So, fighting the misconception that all labels are meaningless, I don't know how you get the point across that the certification logo in Ontario is not meaningless.
Yeah.
But like I said, most of our customers come here to buy organic and have a good sense of what that means. So that's not as much of a misconception that we have to battle here at this shop.
Yeah. So I love this conversation because it's really good for the people here. But in terms of informing us at Ontario Organic what we need to do for public trust, oftentimes we don't know what that messaging is that's missing. We think we're hitting the mark and we're talking about, the depth of roots, for example, which is obviously very important. But maybe we haven't pushed enough that we're non-GMO and then describing what GMO actually means. A lot of people don't even know about Roundup Ready crops anymore. That was a huge conversation way
Yeah.
back when.
Yeah.
Still happening, but nobody's talking about it. And it's history for a lot of people, and probably they don't even think it's happening anymore, kind of thing. So there is those pieces, and we'd love to get feedback. From you, like if you're like, hey, could you put together some information pieces on this, or this? Like we do put together those information pieces and articles and all sorts of things, and can actually provide those paper resources even for you to hand out, or digital resources that can help with those education pieces. All right, so we're going to move into our questions here. Sorry, we went a little bit long with that part, and I see Surendra has their hand up. So, Surendra, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, hi. My name is Surendra. I'm actually a farmer, a small farm in Campbellville, the vegetable farm or organic but not certified. So I have a few questions that kind of maybe comes from a farmer's perspective. So I don't do a whole lot of wholesale because it's a fairly small farm. Although I've sold a few beans to Angela a few years ago. I don't know if you remember. So my question is, so I don't intend to sell wholesale too much, but sometimes I wonder, if I have excess of garlic or whatever, I might want to sell wholesale. So a few questions pertaining to that. So two questions. I guess first, if I want to approach a like an organic store like Angela or Rebecca's, what would be the best approach for me? To should I bring a sample or should I just make a phone call or email? That's my first question. And I guess in terms of prices, like, is there a particular, I mean, I think the number that's thrown is 60% is the wholesale rate. Uh, is that correct? So two questions for you. So anybody who wants to, I guess.
Well, I can jump in here if that's okay, Rebecca. I mean, I prefer to get be contacted by email. We're such a small store that I'm often running the cash register. So, I'm not, that's best for me. Are pretty strong morally here about not fighting with farmers to lower the price of their food. If you're a wholesale distributor and we think you might have some wiggle room, maybe we'll negotiate the price a bit, but we don't really negotiate the price with farmers. So we kind of expect you to charge us what you need to make to make a decent living as a farmer.
Okay.
So then we will do with that what we can. We will so yeah, in terms of getting in touch, send an email, say this is what I have, this is how much I have. The questions we're going to ask you is what kind of payment, what's your payment situation? What do you require for payment? We're going to ask you how often you're in Toronto. Do you have a minimum order to come into Toronto? Because most small farms don't want to come into Toronto to deliver the small order that we would take. If it's something like garlic, which holds for a bit, maybe we could take a little bit more than we need, but we also have really limited refrigeration space here. So we would ask you, what do you need to come into the city? Because, like I said, it's a tough journey. And then we'd want to know how much you want to charge for it. And if we can't sell it at the price that you're sending it to us for, we might tell you we can't sell it, and make a decent margin on that. And then it would be your prerogative whether you wanted to lower the price or not. But we definitely won't. We won't bully you into it. We won't really even ask you to lower the price. We're just going to assume that you're coming to it from a place of this is what I need to make a decent living. And then we'll sell it. I mean, we prefer that you're certified organic. We'll ask you about some questions about your farm and stuff like that. If you are certified organic, it's easier for us because we don't really have to have those questions, and we don't. And not that I'm saying we don't want to, but we don't have to have a personal relationship with you. We're not relying on that to know that you're a trustworthy person and that you're running an operation that is, you know, environmentally and ethically and morally sound. Um, so, I don't really do the buying here, so I don't remember you, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that. But if we're always looking for stuff, I mean, it would also depend on what you're growing and whether there's a glut of it. Like, for example, we have a guy that we buy a lot of garlic from, so we wouldn't necessarily want to bail on him because he does kind of rely on us to buy his garlic. So, that's another thing to consider is do we already kind of have a relationship with somebody who we wouldn't want to let down, especially if it's a quantity of something. Does that answer your questions?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. And do we have any other questions from the group here? We probably have time for like one more question. Yeah. Carolyn, I see your hand up there.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
This is not a question. I am a senior on a fixed income. I live below the poverty line, and I thank God for the freezer and the fridge. I go out and I can make a huge pot of soup that I can live on every 2, 3 weeks. So I will go out and I will buy as much cauliflower as I can, freeze it, and what I do is I rice it so that I can throw it in soup. And I also chop it up and blanch it. And I do that with the other vegetables. I hate parsnips. I hate turnips. I don't eat it. I'm diabetic. So I do not use potatoes or sweet potatoes. I watch the amount of carbohydrates that I do use. I have oatmeal that I rely on and cinnamon. Uh, and it's so easy to buy bones and make broth from that. So that's where I get my collagen from. And I swear by Gerber Meats at from Cross Hill, Ontario. Um, and I make my life gets a little bony every 2, 3 weeks from the boat broth, but it has saved my life, and that makes it so much easier to make food ahead. So I make a big pot, put it in the freezer.
All right. Okay, well, that's like really great advice. And I think, where we're talking about whole foods and ease of preparation and doing things at scale, it makes sense, right? And you can buy higher quality foods if you're doing like larger batches and
Yeah.
freezing and prepping it for later. So yeah, all right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your time today, Angela and Rebecca. We really are thankful for you joining us today, and we will be um, back again in about a month to talk about what sells and why. And we kind of touched on that a bit today, but we're gonna talk a little bit more about that. We also have some additional upcoming webinars we hope you can join us from. So it's Earth Day this Wednesday, April 22nd. And so we've joined with Farmers for Climate Action, and from Soil to Solutions, we'll be talking about that. So we hope you can join there with us. And we also have April 29th, we're going to be talking about the very, very, very first organic national data portal, Meet, Ask, AgriWise. We're going to talk about our journey through creating the data portal and also about where it is now and then what we see happening with it in the future. We also have weekly webinars. We'll be doing a one next week, which will be inputs, and so that'll be our next week one. And then we'll also be having another one with market gardeners coming up the last of the month. So we'll be having weekly webinars I should say weekly coffee talks, just like today's, which are really great. Um, all right, our next slide here. I just want to also mention that we are getting people out to farms. There is no way to better understand about food and the work that it takes and the land that it impacts and the ecosystems than getting people with their feet on farms. And so that has been last year we had a very successful year as our inaugural year, and we're in our second year of getting people out onto farms. And so basically you don't even have to have a store. You don't have to be selling something there, but if you have something to share on your farm and we can get people out to you so that you can talk about it and give them a tour, please reach out to us so you can host. We've also had, blueberries, we have maple syrup, we've had been out in the vineyards learning about native plants, all sorts of things that we did last year. We have a bunch coming up this year. But if you have a farm to recommend, or if you happen to be a farm and you'd like to host an event, we do all the back work for you. You just gotta be there the day of, and we get the people to you. So hopefully you can connect us with some of those people, and we can fill up the entire summer with getting people out onto farms. And finally, if you have not heard, we are a not-for-profit that we are driven by memberships. With that's how we basically keep the lights on, as I say. And there you are, Angela, right in the middle. Every talk we do, Angela, you're right in the middle at the final slide. And and so if you are not a member and you have the ability to be a member, we would love for you to come in and join. We have everything from our advocates up to those that, just like Finnings, are giving 0.1% of all sales right back to Ontario Organic to keep the organization going. So please join the herd if you haven't already. And I want to thank you so much for joining today. This will be recorded. That'll be sent out to you. And it's just been just so lovely, Angela and Rebecca, to have you join us today. And we look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you. All
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.